Who was the highest risk lottery projected prospect in the 2026 NBA draft? And what about the best shooter or the best passer? It's a draft superlatives episode coming up next.
You are Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Your daily podcast on the future stars of the NBA. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Nathan Grubel, and welcome to the Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings podcast. On today's show, Maxwell Baumbach and I, we're talking superlatives for the 2026 NBA draft class. We're going to be going through our safest second-round prospect, best overall athlete, best ball handler, and more. But we have to begin with the spiciest one that we have on deck, which would be which 2026 NBA draft prospect who's projected to go in the lottery is the scariest option to take. Really quick, before I kick it to Maxwell to get us started, this idea came to mind off of something I posted on my Twitter account after at Draft Deeper, going through some draft superlatives. I think it's always fun to look at prospects through these types of lenses, because if you say a prospect is the best at something, Maxwell, and you don't necessarily have them in a good spot on your board, it's probably a good chance to maybe rethink portions of your rankings and how you actually value these players. So I thought some of these exercises were fascinating. You actually came up with this first topic in particular, the scariest lottery prospect to go draft. Who is it for you, Maxwell? Who's your answer?
It's Nate Ament. For me, the 6'10" forward out of Tennessee, who's picked up a lot of, it seems like the smoke is dying down, but last week there was a lot of he's going to go 6 to Brooklyn smoke.
Yep.
I never know what to make of that this time of year. Like, there's so many teams that get hard linked to a guy, and then a week later, no one's talking about it. Sometimes it ends up being true, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know what the deal is with that situation. But the idea of taking him 6th really made my stomach turn a little bit. So I did a feature on Nate Ament during the season. And what I really like about Ament is that he's really tall, and I think he's a very mistake-free player with a projectable shot, which is hard to find at that size. For a guy his size, he was an average three-point shooter this year, but he was an above-average free throw shooter. He took a lot of pull-up two-point attempts and shot a great percentage on them. The three-point volume was really high. He was great at shooting threes at the prep level. There's reason to believe he's going to be a good shooter. In addition to that, his steal and block rates were solid for a first-year player in the SEC. Like, that's really nice. I don't see the star upside, and this is exactly what I said with Zachary Rishape a few years back, where, I was on podcasts with people telling me, you can get fired for putting some of these guys over him. And I couldn't get there with Rishape. The star stuff is not here. Horrible in terms of half court true shooting percentage as a whole, effective field goal percentage. One of the worst rim finishing prospects we have seen for a guy his size who will be going in the first round. Barely dunked the ball this last year. And I think there's just a lack of creativity and flow to his game beyond what any of the numbers say. But when I wrote about Nate Ament and I went through his passing and all the things like that, because he has this solid assist turnover ratio, a lot of his assists just came within the flow of the offense. This is a play where Jacoby Gillespie comes off the screen and he made the right pass. And that's, there's worse things you could do, certainly. And we've seen players do worse things.
Sure.
But I don't feel like he is a very savvy improvisational player. When everything is on script, I think he knows how to not make mistakes. But I don't think he has the juice to consistently get downhill, break down his man, get to spots. And I just don't think we see guys all the time that are poor finishers pre-NBA, like Jaylen Brown and Ben Thompson, et cetera. Those guys are so athletic that their body's kind of catching up with their coordination. They figured out. I don't think Nate Ament's that kind of athlete. And I just don't see the ceiling. Like, when people talk about he could be this or that, it's like, I see a really solid role player. But when you're looking at the playoffs right now and seeing Julian Champagne's handle versus Nate Ament is night and day. It is not close.
Yeah.
And that's where with Nate Ament, I'm just like, I'm out. It's a star swing.
So then what the heck do you do with the free throw numbers and the free throw rate? So what, legitimately, what do you do with that? Because when we're projecting forward guys who may have star upsides in the NBA on the offensive end, take the playmaking, passing stuff and put that to the side. If I'm talking pure putting the ball in the basket, it's usually one of two things. It's either taking and making a ton of threes at high volume, or it's drawing a lot of fouls and getting to the free throw line and being an efficient scorer that way. And Nate didn't do the first one, but he did the second one.
Yeah, I think there's a willingness to engage with physicality. And I think that could partially explain some of the poor finishing, is that like he does actively seek contact downhill, but I also think he's completely unable to make guys miss. Like you look at his Euro steps and they're super clunky and they're taking 80 seconds to get where he needs to go, and then he's drawing a bunch of fouls. Like I think it's more a symptom of the lack of burst and toolsiness and ability to make guys miss, and processing, where it's just like he's not seeing that help is coming. So instead of making the right pass, he's just kind of barreling into a guy, which again, there's so many worse ways he could be handling this. This guy rarely turns the ball over for a guy that had a really high usage rate as a freshman in the SEC. Like these things could all be worse. But with him, when I watch the foul drawing, I'm not like, wow, defenses have to foul him because they can't stay in front. It's more like incidental while also showing some of his other flaws.
So when we're talking about scariest lottery picks, you and I are on the same wavelength, I believe, which is taking a bet on someone who may have positional size or project to play an archetype or a role that would be quote unquote more valuable or harder to find than some of these guards who we're always talking about in this lottery range. And I think if you're maybe reaching on one of those players, it could end up getting a little murky. And in your wavelength with Nate Ament, I specifically went with Aday out of Michigan. Now, there's a lot of people who could look at me and say, Nate, this guy's 7'3" with a massive wingspan and standing reach. He rebounds the ball on both ends of the floor. He blocks shots. He's always going to be an interior presence, even with some of the passing flashes he's shown. Like, that seems to be a pretty safe guy to draft at 7'3". So what's your worry? Well, my worry is, what if Aday is only able to play like 15 to 17 minutes per game, and you don't necessarily know what you're going to get out of him from a physicality standpoint? What if he is a little bit too soft, trying to finish through guys and score in the post and deal with legitimate 7-foot+ size in his own right on the block? What if he's not able to develop more of a jump shot? What if you essentially took a backup big man with like the 6th, the 5th, or the 8th overall pick? It's not necessarily that Aday can't go in like the late lottery range or like the mid first round range, because when we're talking about a player recouping that type of value, I mean, Ryan Kalkbrenner won the second round last year, but like he probably should have went in like the top 20 to 25 picks, because if everything holds right with his career, he's going to return like top 15, top 20 value. So it's not that I don't think he can return that type of value, just like I don't think that Nate Ament can't return like top 15 to 20 value in the draft. It's more so when we're taking one of these guys this high and we're not confident that they can be primary or secondary options within the offense. Like, am I confident I'm going to be running sets through Aday, whatever that may look like? I'm not entirely sure. When we talk about drafting players who are above 7 feet, I understand the injury risk may not have been as prevalent at UCLA and at Michigan in college, but that's always the risk you run with taking guys who are that big. Like, I just don't know if I'm eager as an NBA team, if I were running one of these teams, to draft Aday like as high as 5 with the Clippers, where he was being mocked because they traded Zubats, or the mock that I even put out that I don't necessarily fully believe, but it's been a lot of the smoke that's out there with the Atlanta Hawks taking him at 8. Like, the Hawks also need one of these talented guards. Like, are we sure they're going to pass on a Michael Brown or a Keaton Wagler or a Kingston Flemings if they're there at 8? Like, I'm not entirely sure of that. I've also heard they may very well want to go with a guard. So like when I'm trying to parse through my tolerance for risk in this particular class, I just come back to the idea of I don't want to overdraft this promise of size when it may not lead me to returning anywhere close to the star value that I'm trying to pick with for as long as I can in the lottery. And that's why my answer, to deviate a little bit from your answer of Amen, because I also agree with you, I also went with Mara for that reason. Yeah,
I think there's like some, I love the floor with Aday, and I have Aday extremely high on my board. I actually have him 9 as it stands currently. My thing with him though is, again, like I think he's an unbelievable passer, and I bang drum for how good his passing is all year. but he's still like a limited playmaker, and that because of his size and his lack of foot speed, it is going to be pretty stationary within the offense. Like you're not going to have him, zooming out on the perimeter very often. Like it's going to be a lot more just like handoff, hub, short roll, which is great. It's super valuable. But I think when you compare him to somebody like Donovan Clingan, where it's like a similar thing where you're going to be a little bit scheme locked when you have a player like that, where Clingan has a little bit of an edge for me at least. And obviously like he started to shoot, which was a surprise. But second on my board, I love Clingan because it was a bad draft. And I thought the floor was really safe. Clingan's just like a lot stronger than Mara. So like even in absence of a handle, like it's a little easier for him to get to certain spots on the floor. So I think that is like a real ceiling inhibitor for Mara right now. So this is a guy who like does still make some really bad passes, is a potential hack-a-shack target, and his lack of strength leads to real kind of functionality issues on both ends of the floor at times.
100%. When we come back to the Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings podcast, we're going to cover who would be our safest choice for the lottery, as well as who are our best ball handlers and passers. Stay tuned. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on, you need the right hire. This is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skill, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing those candidates. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Patio season is here, and there's nothing better than having an outdoor space that feels comfortable, functional, and gets used, whether it's a backyard, a patio, a balcony, or even a deck. The right setup can completely change how you spend your time at home. I know I, for one, love to be able to sit out on my deck with my wife, enjoy a nice meal during the summer, and relax on those sunny days. And that's where Wayfair comes in. From outdoor seating and patio lighting to grills, rugs, decor, storage, Wayfair's a one-stop shop for creating an outdoor space that fits your style and your budget. Plus, with over 20 million five-star reviews in Wayfair verified products, it's easy to shop with confidence. When I needed an upgrade for outdoor seat and table set, Wayfair was the best choice to make because of an array of enticing options in my personal budget. So many websites, they'll charge you an arm and a leg for a full 6-seat set, but I found a beautiful glass table and chair setup in minutes at a great price. Wayfair made it easy to find a full set that complements the rest of my outdoor setup. It makes having guests over a delight during the spring and the summer months. Patio season's here, and these deals won't last fast. Head to wayfair.com right now to get you outdoor space ready for way less. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style and every home. All right, thank you for making the Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings podcast your first listen of the day. All right, Maxwell, took a little bit of time talking about our scariest lottery prospects. Who is your safest lottery prospect that you can draft? I think I already know your answer. I know my answer. Yeah. Who's the guy?
It's Cam Boozer. This guy rocks. He's just so smart, so good at basketball. One thing I always like to think about is like the different tail outcomes that a player could potentially have. And I feel like with Boozer, there's just so many tails where he can just find a way to end up being an effective NBA player. Statistically, the only real like downside was he didn't take a lot of pull-up twos. He didn't shoot that well on him. And he didn't block a lot of shots for a guy his size. But other than that, he did everything extremely well. He's super smart. He plays hard. He knows how to play, makes great decisions, shoots the ball well, dunks the ball a lot more than people realize. Yep. All this talk about him not being a very good athlete. I just think it's near impossible for a guy. I don't think it's like quite as, maybe not quite as safe as Cooper Flagg a year ago. in some ways, where I was so bullish on Flag. Like I was talking about, like, his 5th percentile outcome still being like a lottery pick, where Boozer, like, maybe it is a little bit less utility because some of the defensive questions, but I just don't see a world where he's not good.
Here's a very easy way to answer the question. If this player is in the running for, or your choice for, several quote unquote best superlatives in a draft class, they're probably the safest guy that you can pick in the lottery. Like, for example, one of the categories we wanted to get into for a superlative is best passer. I think you and I both answered Cameron Boozer as our best passer. We've talked about what he can do on the block. We've talked about what he can do as a spot up guy, as a pick and roll finisher, as a short roll guy, as a pick and pop player, as someone who you can put in the corners, ask him to shoot, as someone who you can put on the ball in isolations and pick and roll environments, and he can actually create functional offense for himself or others off the dribble. Like, there's just so many different ways in which you can utilize Cam Boozer to where I can draft him and plug and play him in any environment with any number of guys in a lineup, and I can make something happen on offense. That, to me, is an ideal player that I want to bring onto my team. I do want to zoom in on the passing stuff just for a second before we move to our other superlative we're talking about here. The passing stuff with Boozer, when I say the words best passer, I think a lot of people would be like, why aren't you saying a guard? Because Cam Boozer's 6'9", able to see over anyone. And it's not just the half court stuff, Maxwell. The hit ahead stuff is elite. And like, it's the type of engine that you want driving a modern day offense in transition. You need someone who can hit the glass and immediately get the ball out to half court or further up the court to get that offense really started and get someone an efficient look on the break. Like, every single thing Cam Boozer does as a passer, half court settings, 1-on-1, drawn two, playing in transition, like, he's probably my answer for most complete passer in this draft.
I agree as well. I think some of the face-up stuff is there, like you said, his ability to see over guys and things like that. The transition stuff shouldn't go understated. And like, I talked about this before, but I always have a checklist of questions I ask myself about every prospect. And one of them is, how does this player contribute to his team in transition? And like, passing is a great way to do that. And that's a huge way that Boozer does it, in addition to being able to hit the trailer free, run the open floor, etc. But just his like 0.5 stuff where it's so advanced, where it's like, wait, not only was that a quick decision, but that was like a really unexpected decision and a long, lengthy cross-court pass that I didn't even see, and you made that immediately. It just quick, smart, genius level stuff on a consistent basis.
I've brought it up before, but that one play at Duke where he like caught a pass midair along the baseline and like immediately redirected it on a skip, I'm like, how many 6'9", 250-pound guys are doing that stuff? Like, yeah, it's like LeBron and like a few other very special players who are doing stuff like that. Like, come on.
Yeah, and it just marries so nicely with the rebounding. Like, that intersection is so crucial to winning. But anyway,
absolutely. So, best ball handler was our other superlative in this segment, and I know you were actually excited to talk about a player who wasn't on your radar initially for the answer to this question, but you and I were talking about it, and I could have also said this player as well. I went a different direction and just make conversation a little more diverse. But who's your best ball handler in this draft class?
It's Braden Smith from Purdue, who is a guy that when I'm doing consulting work with players, I'm showing him Braden Smith stuff all the time. Because he is so polished operating with the ball in his hands. There's one play that I've watched a million times this year in a Michigan game where he comes off a screen from the slot, and as he's going to get into the paint, there's a defender stunting over from the nail, and he like slows himself down and does like a short retreat so that stunt goes away. Then he gets into the paint. Then he crosses over to his right hand when that defender comes back over so they can't get to him. The whole time, the ball is being dribbled like 6 inches off the ground. It is so low that if you're that short, you got to do it. That's a non-negotiable. The ball is so low to the floor, and then he dribbles it out, and he drags out that ball screen so that Aday Mara's eyes are on him the whole time, allowing Trey Kaufman-Renn to flatten out to the baseline and hit an open jumper. His ability to just keep the ball tight, know when and where he can get into tight spaces. Really great instinct for that. Unbelievable at drawing out those 2 on the ball situations to just maximize recovery pass for defenders and force more difficult, longer rotations on a play-by-play basis. I think Braden Smith is as good at using his handle to prevent turnovers and create advantages as anybody else.
He does my favorite old man at the YMCA point guard thing, which is he never kills his dribble.
Never.
He always keeps that puppy alive, and he just knows how to lull different guys to sleep and go hunt his matchup because he's so good as a ball handler. He can go to crossovers, to step backs, to behind the backs. He has pretty much any move that you would want him to, but he's not one of those and one mixtape type ball handlers either. He's very functional with his dribble. Like, everything is precise and chosen specifically for the moment and for the action. I love those players who can prioritize getting to different spots on the court without over dribbling the air out of the basketball. Braden Smith is one of those guys. I love watching Braden Smith operate from the point guard spot. I'll go with Labaron Philon and make a course correction for the post on social media that sparked this entire podcast. I went for the superlative in my post with a combination of Braden Smith and Ibuka Okori for this answer. I'm going to amend that, and I'm just going to say Labaron Philon instead of Ibuka Okori, because when I was going back and watching some Philon tape in preparation for the segment, I went, you know what? I got to retract this statement a little bit. Like, I was talking to you before we went on the podcast there. The way in which he's able to size guys up and create space with his dribble is probably the best in this class. Like, he does a lot of those things too, where he keeps it low. He's able to navigate through tight spaces. He doesn't kill his dribble a lot either, but that in particular, his ability to actually size up and create separation is so important for a player who is only weighing in at like 175, 176 pounds, and that's soaking wet. Like, he's not going to be able to challenge a bunch of physicality in the lane. He's going to have to choose his matchups very carefully. And when he gets someone in a one-on-one situation, he's able to make the most out of it. He's not someone who's always exploding the basket, although he can knife his way through defenders and get into that painted area, get to his patented runner. But the way in which he got so much more confident at sizing somebody up and getting to a step back jumper, which was not one of his strengths last year in his freshman season at Alabama, that stood out to me so much. And that's a big reason why I actually went with Labaron Philon. But with a caveat, it's Labaron Philon tied with Braden Smith, because Braden Smith's going to have a role in the NBA. Like, I get it. He's small, but he's just so awesome with the ball in his hands, running everything you'd want him to. Yeah, Braden Smith's going to have a role in the NBA. All right, when we return to the Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings podcast, Maxwell and I will wrap up. We're going to talk about our picks for best shooter. We're going to talk about our picks for safest second-round prospect in the 2026 NBA Draft. Stay tuned.
You know, I carry a lot of responsibility in my household. If something happened to me, there would be serious consequences. We have a mortgage, we got tuition, we got everyday bills. Those aren't going anywhere if something happens to me. And I know that's an overwhelming feeling, but I'm taking steps to protect my family by getting life insurance through Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast, easy, and 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. And as of March 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. Ethos has 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 3,000 reviews. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/lockdownNBA. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get your free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/lockdownNBA. That's ethos.com/lockdownNBA. Ethos.com/lockdownNBA. Application times and rates may vary.
ED is way more common than most guys think. Millions of guys deal with it at some point, and that's exactly why HIMSS offers a straightforward way to handle it. HIMSS connects you with licensed healthcare providers online, giving you access to legitimate ED treatment options from the comfort of your own home. No awkward appointments and no pharmacy lines, just a straightforward process that makes it easier to take care of yourself. The whole process is simple. You just complete a quick online intake and a provider reviews your information. If treatment's right for you, it ships directly to your door in discreet packaging, which makes the whole experience feel private and stress-free. It's straightforward, it's transparent, and designed to make getting care feel easy. To get simple, online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more. Visit hims.com/LockedOnNBA. That's hims.com/LockedOnNBA for your free online visit. hims.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, welcome back to the Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings podcast. All right, Maxwell, best shooter in the draft. I know what my answer is. I'll just say mine right off the top.
Yeah,
I think anyone who's been listening to me talk on these podcasts long enough this cycle knows that my answer is going to be Christian Anderson out of Texas Tech. This kid has been shooting it from the parking lot since he came out of the womb. This year at Texas Tech, 44.7% on spot-up threes, 45.5% in threes out of the pick and roll, 39.8% on catch-and-shoot threes, 43.1% off the dribble two-point jumpers, 41.7% off the dribble three-point jumpers. There's a lot of different ways in which you can answer the question of best shooter. You can categorize it. When I'm talking about best overall shooter, I want versatility, and I want efficiency, and I want volume. Christian Anderson attempted a metric ton of threes. He hit them from everywhere on the floor and every variety of play type that you can possibly ask for. He's the most dynamic on-ball shooter that I can project forward in this draft class just based on my board and my evaluations. And I think that there's several different ways that he can be utilized even more off the ball. I'm not calling him Steph Curry. Don't clip me like that. Don't do that to me. But in terms of how someone like that is utilized in an off-ball capacity, working off screens, coming off actions from the second side, and being just a quick trigger threat to get the ball out in a hurry, I trust Christian Anderson to be able to get that shot up because he has a lightning quick release, and I trust it to go in from wherever he's at on the floor. That's my answer for best shooter in the draft. Who's your best shooter in the draft, Maxwell?
Well, I do just want to say like that's correct. Like I'm going to bring up a couple guys real quick here, but it is Christian Anderson. I knew that was going to be your answer as soon as I saw the question posed, but that's correct. Like 45.5% on pick and roll threes, 44.7% on spot ups. The parking lot range, like you mentioned, is just annoying for defenses to have to deal with because like you can just he's one of those guys where you just set the pick and roll so high, and then from there, like it's just such a big problem. And there's so few guys that. And this is the reason I say that that's correct is like I initially had an answer. And the more I decided about like what it does to a defense, the more I came back to Christian Anderson. If I can do like this porridge is too hot, this porridge is too cold, this porridge is just right.
Yep.
The more like off-ball shooter that I'm really into in this class is Tyler Nickel out of Vanderbilt, where this is like purely off-ball. Like he does not take more than one dribble. I don't know if that's because he's not capable of it or if that's just how he plays or whatever. Like he doesn't dribble often. But on his career, he took over 13 threes per 100 possessions and made almost 40% of them. And he would probably be one of my answers, if not the answer to the question of like, if you had one guy that you need to run off an action and shoot a deep, who do you want it to be? It's probably Tyler Nickel. Nearly 40%, like just below it 1 year ago, and then at it the next 2 seasons. So consistently year over year, this is a guy with a lightning quick release who's hit every type of three in the book. And then I think sort of in between Nickel and Anderson is Ryan Conwell, who did not have a great three-point shooting year, but the usage was absurd. He had nearly a 30% usage rate. So it's one of those things where it's like, man, if you flip the role with him and Tyler Nickel, we're probably talking about Ryan Conwell. In that same conversation, we're probably not talking about Tyler Nickel in that conversation. So I think Ryan Conwell had a down year because the role he played, but I think he's every bit as good of a shooter, especially off movement. Always been super dynamic, always a lot of handoffs, off screens, transition looks for him.
You brought him up, so I have to ask the question before we leave. Mm-hmm. I've been a coward, and I haven't put Ryan Conwell in the top 30 of my board for quite a while.
Yeah.
Tell me, am I just a straight coward, or like is there merit to having him still in like that early second round range? Because I think Conwell's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I think early second is right. Good intel guy, hard worker, super strong, really shoots it, doesn't make any mistakes. But it is like tough that it's just like, man, you're like a 6'2" shooting guard. I don't love that. That's tough. It's a tough thing to overcome. So I think it's reasonable.
And I will say for your point about Tyler Nickel, if we're specifically talking about the only aspect of coming off of a screen, you do want someone who's a legitimate 6'7", who can always get that shot up over a defender. Tyler Nickel did that, not just from 3-point range, but I did really love how Tyler Nickel got a bunch of 2-point looks in that same fashion as well. Those free throw line type shots. Yeah, I agree with you about Nickel. He's some guy who, probably will go in like the 45 to 60 range of this draft. Maybe could go a little bit sooner than that, but somebody's going to get a player out. If he hits his best type of outcome, he can be a Sam Hauser for somebody. You've said that multiple times on this podcast. That's a guy who I would want to take with a second round pick if I know that I need an injection of shooting in my team. But that's going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On NBA Draft with No Ceilings podcast. Please make sure to subscribe and follow at No Ceilings NBA on social media to ensure that you're locked in for all of our latest content and latest episodes. You'll be among the first if you follow us to get that draft guide that we're putting out there. Trust me when I say it's coming soon. We've seen some previews. It's going to be the best looking product in terms of any draft guide that I've ever seen on the market. I've been around scouting for 15 years. I've seen everyone's online draft guide. This thing is phenomenal. It looks excellent. It reads well. It's not just a pile of words. Everything's concise, but has all of the information you would want on 100 prospects. Please go check out the No Ceilings NBA draft guide when it drops. Be sure to subscribe. Head to noceilingsnba.com to get your copy when it drops. But thank you all for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week.